I wanted to share something from my own life that's powerful that I think will be useful to hear. I wasn't expecting it to happen. I was visiting an old friend who's kind of like an elder, Japanese elder friend to me. And we did a trade, and I did her love and destiny card reading for her, and she did some energy work with me. And was also speaking from experience. And I started channeling during the experience, and I just had some really profound reframes, is what I'm going to call them, which is a beautiful thing because many of us have a story. We get stuck sometimes in the rut of that story, and we just have our neurological pathways set up in a certain way to feel a certain way about what happened on most likely a trauma of some type. So sometimes when we're doing inner work, we talk about our core wounds that happened usually early in life that really affected us. And it was really cool. It's like I had a series of reframes where what normally I would say, gosh, isn't that awful or profound or sad or traumatic, dramatic, tragic, whatever, that's how I tended to look at these things. And instead, it was weird. I saw it with fresh eyes, from a new perspective, and I was able to see the flip side of it, which was, thank God I had that experience because it gave me a heads up. And I obviously wanted that and needed that so that I was more realistic about how I was viewing these things. So I'll give you the examples. So this is some pretty heavy shit, which we all have. And, honestly, sometimes I think, how am I able to be as bright as I am or whatever, despite all these things that have happened? But I guess if it doesn't kill you, it makes you stronger. So anyway, one of these core wounds, the earliest one, was that right after I was born, my grandmother on my mom's side, which was all I had on that side on the family, my mom had no one else. So it was quite tragic for her. And she was murdered in the snow, and next to her body, it said, "I hate women." And so that's pretty tragic, happening right after I was born. My mom went into mourning. She wasn't really fully in her body or present with me. And that's usually a time when, as a baby, you're getting a lot of mana energy and love and attention and celebration. Didn't happen. And I remember thinking, where is everybody? Like, isn't this supposed to be a more positive experience? Like, I've arrived, hello. So anyway, I always thought, that was always such a wow kind of thing. And I always kind of saw it as sort of a hit on my life. And it was. I think it was. I think the powers that be were trying to undermine my life because they were afraid of my power. They were trying to undermine it in any way they could. And so I saw it from that new perspective, and I was like, actually that's a compliment, because if they were that afraid of my power, which I know I'm a star seed, and I can't wait to see who we are as star seeds once we're fully activated, but I know that I am, have a lot of gifts and am fully powerful because I already have that, and it's just going to keep getting better as these activations happen over time. And so I saw it as a compliment, like, wow, you guys are really afraid of me because you tried to undermine me right away. You saw my light right away and, did what you could to mess me up right from the get-go, I guess. So that was really cool to see that through fresh eyes. And then, I had the unique experience of having a couple otherwise tragic experiences from my dad, where, and I've talked about this before, you know, when I was 1.5, my brother was born, and then my dad like switched all his energy and attention and love to my brother, and was like living almost his life through my brother, almost like in a way that it was he was just really trying to heal himself through raising his son, and to the neglect of the rest of us. And that was my first heartbreak, because we did have a beautiful bond before that happened, and then I just kind of got like abandoned or betrayed by him. And even though he was in the house, he really had no connection with me. He was not interested in anyone else after that. And so, you know, that was quite a betrayal for a 1.5-year-old to handle. Then when I was 4, I witnessed my mom flailing because he had an affair, and she was like 22 and we were, or 24, whatever, you know, early 20s. And, you know, I was 4, my brother was 2, and it's like she had dropped out of college to get married, and she was asking all her girlfriends, you know, what do you think I should do? Should I leave him? Should I stay? You know, like, we've got 2 little kids. It was tragic, right? But also seeing that, you know, at age 4, I was like, wow, these men can really hurt you. And normally I would, you know, was kind of seeing it as, you know, I'm not real impressed with these men characters, because he was my main male figure. But I just decided to reframe it and be like, thank God I found that out that early, to where, because I already come from, my mom's line is very pure and naive, a little clueless even. And those were kind of my wake-up calls. They were my heads up that, you know what, guys can hurt you pretty bad. You better be discerning. And I personally needed to see that and experience that, so I wasn't going in completely blind thinking that they were rigged like me and like doing the best they could in integrity, and, you know, just would never do stuff like that, because it does happen. And it just gave me a heads up that, hey, that's out there, and, you know, be careful, make good decisions and all that. And then I got to witness my parents' marriage, which was not very good. My dad was an alcoholic. He was also a misogynist, which is kind of like a narcissist, for those of you who don't know what that is exactly. It comes from, the term misogynist is an actual like personality disorder that comes from Men Who Hate Women and the Women Who Love Them book is what describes it best, and all the kind of the ways it shows up, so you know what to look for and how to work with it. So anyway, you know, my mom kind of leaned on me a bit. You know, she didn't really want, I guess, her girlfriends knowing her marriage was just And so, you know, I witnessed all that growing up, and I witnessed her also get trapped by having a 3rd child pregnancy with him that extended it 8 years longer, until she got strong enough to leave him finally. So it was a 20-year marriage that was not good for her. I think it was good for my dad, because otherwise he would have had nothing. But, you know, we kind of suffered. And yet I still think it was better than if my mom was a single mom, because she just wasn't prepared for that and strong enough for that yet. But my point being, I saw marriage and what it could be like. I saw what it could be like to get trapped with little kids, or even a 3rd child 10 years later, that sort of makes you want to stay in the marriage until he's, at least in that case, he was 8 or 9 when they split. And so I also I got a lot of wake-up calls early in life, because then I turned out to be like a second mom to him, you know, my youngest brother, because I was 10 when he was born, and then I saw all that went into that, especially because he was a handful at the time, and it took all of us to kind of, he turned out amazing, but I know it was because of all the investment into him. And But I got a real heads up about marriage and kids, because we have a little bit of a program, at least in America, through Disney or whatnot, fairy tales about, oh, I'm getting married and oh, I'm having a baby and la la la. It's not that way at all. Because then a lot of times I think people get, there's probably a term for this, like they get hit upside the head with, oh my God, I want out of this marriage. I feel trapped. I feel stuck. And oh my gosh, I had kids and now I can't leave, and I just feel like I'm going to ruin their lives now, and I can't even financially support them by leaving, and all that. And I just saw all that at a young age, and it was rather heavy for me to see all that, but I guess obviously I was capable of it. But I just, instead of seeing those all those things as like, oh, isn't that too bad, I actually was like, thank you for giving me a heads up. Thank you for showing me these things, spirit, universe, because I have never had a la fairy tale attitude about marriage or having kids. And most people do. It's like a pill they take, and like everyone else. And I'm just like, I know that's the program, you guys, but I'm not seeing enough good marriages and happy marriages to really do that unless it's really right. So for me, I just made a decision. It really needs to be a solid marriage. And I was actually briefly married just for a few months, and then he turned out to completely hide some certain things that I then decided to leave because of the lies there. But for the most part, I've been a sovereign single woman, and I'm turning 52 on March 4th. And so what are you getting me for my birthday? And so anyway, I just wanted to share that with you, because it was like one reframe after the other, of me sharing things with her, because I think, my disappointment or sadness around especially the men factor, which is partly what inspired me to go into Tantra and help them know how to be with women in a sacred way that's like in integrity. But, I had been kind of disappointed enough times to where I think it might have contributed to me having my fibroids that are in my uterus, which are just like fiber, they're just kind of like in the way. They're just like almost fiber, what's a way to say that? They're just taking up space, and I'd rather not have them there. But I know it feels like it's partly an emotional reaction, and it can also be physical too, because I've learned from my colonics practitioner that a lot of times it's like bacteria and parasites that kind of create this little home, in a bundle, where they protect themselves and create an environment that they can live in and sort of stick together or whatever. And there's different theories, but at any rate, I wanted to just share that with you, because if you have what you consider traumas or tragedies in your life, and you were like, yeah, God, that's just my story. But I was just like, ooh, it's all on how you look at it, because sometimes we need to see those things, because that is reality sometimes. And it sort of inspires us to be careful and discerning. And like, I could have very easily been all woo-woo about marriage and having kids like most people. And I was like, no, I know what goes into that, man. It better be right. The partner better be right. And I sense that partnering thing is going to happen for me this year. And at age 52. And then also just having kids, I was like, I am not having kids unless I have a solid partner. I have no interest in being a single parent, and it better be a solid foundation before we bring that child into the world, because I kind of feel like my parents were winging it, and we were a low-income family, and it just was stressful. We didn't have anything, so that makes your options very limited. I started working when I was 8 years old just so I could have some stuff. Started buying my own, getting some clothes like when I was in fourth grade because I wanted more than just one pair of pants and whatever. So anyway, I hope that's super helpful for some of you, because you know, if you can reframe and go, you know, that actually did show me this and it did teach me that. And because I became aware of that at that age, it means that I made decisions differently. And sometimes we have these, what I call like necessary evils when it comes to lessons. They're not fun, they're friggin' painful, but they're necessary. And we also talked about the concept too of attracting these things into our life and taking responsibility for that. And even though we're not doing it consciously and it's all subconscious, the whole point being is that I needed to have those lessons at those times so that I was prepared to make better choices than my parents and better choices for my life that I wanted to have. So, you know, a lot of times when you take responsibility and realize, you know, that was my life path. That's what everything shows up for a reason, and it's not just random. So I needed to have that lesson, and I'm not going to be mad at myself for that. You know, there's no point in that. That's just self-sabotaging. So you really just have to let it go and be at peace with it. So anyway, it felt like there was quite a shift for me, and hopefully that'll create quite a shift for you.